So I went to an HBCU. I had a chip on my shoulder, and I'm like, nobody's definitely not going to try me. Mm-hmm. And so I brought that energy and that mentality with me as an 18-year-old in college, and it got me in a lot of trouble. It actually got me suspended the second semester of my freshman year in college because I got into a big fight with some girls from another state, and the girl that I was fighting with, she actually cut one of the girls' pinkies off. And so because I was involved in the altercation, it got me suspended from college the second semester of my freshman year.
So what would you tell that person?
Just keep going. Like, honestly, just keep going because...
So first of all, you say, and don't forget that. You say keep going, but so now that you're able to look at that situation, is it any way that you can embody that energy that you were in at 18-year-olds and tell me what did that feel like?
It felt like survival mode.
Okay.
It felt like I said in the beginning, it felt like I'm never going to be the prey. I'm not allowing anybody to try me because I'm not the one to be played with. Right? Because in my hood, I'd already proven that, right? So in a new environment, my energy linked up with people that had that same mentality, which got me caught up in a situation that interrupted, me being able to stay on campus. So I continued studying college, but I had to live off campus.
So why would you tell yourself to keep going?
Because you're not a product of your... I could have thought that I was a product of my environment, but I wasn't.
Right.
It was just circumstantial. It was just environment. And it also, environmental from the perspective where my parents did everything in their power to raise me the right way. Like, I had a great education. I went to private school from kindergarten all the way up until 10th grade, right? I went to public school in 10th grade. So I only did public school 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. I had a great education from that early foundation. However, what I know now is that sometimes environmental things do impact how you show up.
I know for sure. Like, now that because you got my brain spinning now.
What would I
tell my 18-year-old self? I also would tell myself at 18, relax and enjoy life. I was, I'm
uptight.
I was uptight. I'm a preacher's kid. You know what I mean? So I had a certain image I had to portray. My father, pastor, my mother, first lady, or he was even a youth pastor, youth first lady, and that image that you had to portray. It imprisons you, and I grew up non-denominational, Pentecostal, somewhere in that, you know what I mean? In that
Holy Ghost sanctified.
Yes. So everything was a sin back then.
Yes.
Everything was it was like you couldn't enjoy life. Everything was wrong. Everything was you going to hell. You had your thoughts that's going on in your mind that you can't control. You're going to hell. Things that you experiencing at an 18-year-old as my hormones changing.
Right.
You having sex. You're going to hell.
Right.
You know what I mean? You try some alcohol. You're going to hell. So then, I was struggling. I was actually, now that I look at it, I was having a war with self at that age.
Say that.
My nature, my innate being.
Yep.
And living up to this image of what a Christian looks like, per se. And at 18 years old, that was a lot of mental, I don't like using this word, but it was a lot of mental trauma, you know what I mean, that it carried over into my adult years. I didn't start having fun until I got with my wife. I didn't have any fun in college.
So we're very early into this conversation, but when you're making me now think about 18, there's a huge internal struggle as an 18-year-old, because you don't really know what you don't know.
What would I tell myself?
But you think you know a lot. Right? And so when I put myself in my space at where I was at 18, like I said, freshman in college, went to college far away from home. No family was around. I had to basically get it on my own. It really put me in survival mode. And what I would tell myself is, like I said, keep going. You're not a product of your environment, right? And like, you can do this.
Right.
You can literally do this. I know it feels like the chips are stacked up against you, and that, you know, because I am literally the first person in my entire family to go to college.
Wow.
I'm a first generation college graduate in my family.
Wow.
So I had absolutely nobody to rely on and get advice from during this experience. Like, when you think about our daughter who just graduated from college, you've been to college, I've been to college. We were able to give her sound advice from experience.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And so I felt like I had a lot to prove to people when I should have been proving it to myself.
I mean, you got to think about it though. When you're 18 years old, when you're 18 years young, you have a different, your mental space, you have a different mental world. You know what I mean?
Completely.
Than you have right now. I'm 18. You know, you basically I'm living for my parents for a say.
God, you feel like that's something to prove, right?
I'm feeling like I have to live for them.
Validation.
Yeah, to make them proud.
Yeah.
You know, and I still like live in a way to honor them now, but I felt like I was living from a perspective of what they wanted for me in life.
Right.
You know, I also would tell myself at 18 years of age that, y'all hear the parrot in the background?
We don't want to know what you would tell yourself. It's all right. We're good.
Okay. All right.
We're good.
So what I would also tell myself, my 18-year-old self, is that you actually are blessed to be able to grow up in a house that your environment that you've grown up in, especially from the environment that you come from. You know, growing up in the hood, my parents had me at a young age, and they done a great job with me with the tools that they had.
Right.
So I would definitely, like, because at 18 years old, you know, you can have attitude with your parents. You mad at them. They think they know it. This is what an 18-year-old is saying about.
At 18, you got an attitude, period.
You got an attitude. Right. But
You
it's
got an
usually with the
attitude.
ones that you're closest with.
Right.
You know, so I also would tell myself, oh, this is a good one. I would tell myself that your discipline will pay off. Keep going. Your choices that you're making now, the vision that you see for yourself, your older self, it will pay off. If you keep walking a walk that you know what I mean, that's different than your friends, it's gonna eventually pay off.
Right.
Because I'm happy here. I'm happy about the choices that I've made. You know, because where we come from, we don't have. Where we come from and you want to come out of that situation, you don't have too many chances to make the wrong choice because we're already in a hole. You know, so for the most part, I'm happy with 99% of my choices that I've made. So I would tell my 18-year-old self, boy, your discipline, your sacrifice, your hard work ethics, it's gonna pay off. It's gonna pay off.
It's gonna what?
It's gonna pay off. So, you know, so I would, okay, I'm going to switch this though.
Let's go.
So because we're talking about what we would tell our 18-year-old self, I was 18, 20, 21 years ago, right?
Yeah.
That's your past self. You just asked me what would we tell our past self. You said keep going. You said, like, listen, basically,
you're not a product of
your environment.
You made the right choice. Like, you're
going.
on the right path.
Your story is your story.
What you see right now is not what you're about to see in 20 plus years.
So let me ask you this then. What would your present self tell your future you 20 years from now?
Really?
Yeah, I like having these kind of conversations because listen, a wise man, well, you gonna hold that?
Keep going.
A wise man in the Bible said that you should put that to everything there is a season.
Right.
And you have to realize that seasons are always changing. And from at 18 years old, that was a season. At 38, 39, this is a season.
Definitely is a season.
At 60 years old, that will be a season. So I'm asking you, what would you tell yourself 20 years from down the road? Because it's necessary that you prepare and plan and have some sort of vision for who you want to be 20 years down the road.
All right, so here it goes. You said 20 years or you said future self?
I know I just said the man in the Bible, but that's actually Ecclesiastes 3, chapter 3, verse 2. I just wanted to make sure because I like when I talk that talk. I want you to know I know what I'm talking about. So Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 2. In all things, there's a season.
Shout out to my father-in-law, my pastor.
Right. I'm sorry.
So repeat the question. So what would I tell my future self or 20 years?
So what would you tell your so we just talked about your past self. What would you tell your future self 20 years from now? Your 20-year future self you. What would you tell that person?
I mean, 20 years from now, I would look back and tell myself that.
No. You're not looking back. You're looking forward. What are you telling the 60-year-old you 20 years from down the road? Like who like it's in the hopes of.
So right now I'm going to speak to my future.
Yes. Thank you.
I'm just, listen, sometimes you got to get understanding.
All right. So speak to your future then. What would you tell your future you?
I would just, it's real simple. Look what you did. Look at your hard work. Look at your dedication. Look at your sacrifices. Look at your healing. Look at what all of that brought to your latter self.
Okay.
Simple for me.
Okay. Why are you just looking at me like that?
Because now,
you're pondering.
Yes, because when you ask a question like that, obviously there is.
It's more to dig into.
In this space, in this sort of space, there's a need to give an answer, right? Because you asked the question, and so I'm thinking like, what would I tell my 64-year-old self?
That's why
I'm like,
you
so
breathe.
if I'm 64, I'm like, I already know. We already talk about. I'm retired, where we talk about our retirement already, and I'm living like the life that I've always envisioned for myself. You know what I mean? I've created.
So I'm because I know you created. I'm gonna pause though, because I saw you sit in that. Yeah. I'm like, so why are you looking at me like that? Because I know that you were that. So we ask questions to make ourselves sit with ourselves.
Right.
And I know like it's easy to say something, but then after you spoke, you like really like sat in it, and it was like, I know there's more to say to that 60-year-old
self. It's a lot to it's a lot to say that I don't even think that I can even try to embody in this moment, right? Because at 43 years old, and what I'm working towards and how I envision my future 20 years from now, it's literally the life that I'm imagining right now. Like, I will literally feel like a miracle. I will literally feel like, makes me emotional, that God chose to like show me so much favor and allow me to not only live the life that I imagined, but for me to carry out the purpose in which he placed me on this earth to do.
How we digging?
Because
let's dig.
Even as it relates to like my business, like I know that my business is purpose driven. I absolutely know sitting here today, that's what I'm supposed to be doing.
Right.
And I know that that's making room for my family. That's making room for my husband to chase his dreams, which is actually the catapult to our real true life. You know what I'm saying? So as I sit here and I think, I'm just like, I feel like gratitude, because I just know that God's word is never null and void. And I know the things that God speaks to me about our life and about my life and about what I'm doing now to get us to that point. And so 20 years from now, I'm just going to be so grateful to God that he did exactly what he said he was going to do. And it won't really be about me. It'll be about him, and it'll be about my obedience to him and living out those previous 20 years exactly how he had set it up for me to live.